their defense has really backed them into a corner where they are still very strongly saying there was no classified information revealed. And yet, when we've seen the details of it, it strikes most people, especially seasoned observers of the security and intelligence scene, that this information was really almost certainly classified at the time.
It's been revealed, meanwhile, that minute-by-minute war plans were sent in that Signal group chat involving high-ranking US officials and a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg, despite the White House claiming that war plans were not included. The Trump administration have scrambled to downplay the leak. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, and John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, have again testified before the House Intelligence Committee.
So it's your testimony that less than 2 weeks ago, you were on a Signal chat that had all of this information about F-18s and MQ-9 Reapers and targets on strike, and you in that 2-week period simply forgot that that was there. That's your testimony?
My testimony is I did not recall the exact details of what was included there.
Tulsi Gabbard there, the Director of National Intelligence, and the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has also spoken out.
The mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed.
Well, let's get the latest with David Charter, Assistant US Editor for The Times. Bring us up to speed. David, good evening.
Hello, Kate, from Washington, D.C.
The Atlantic today, then. Oh, sorry, David. We've basically had the whole chat today, haven't we? In a nutshell, what extra did we learn, and does it affect the story?
That's right. So after 24 hours in which the White House and all of the senior people were insisting that there was no classified information shared on this group chat, which the journalist was inadvertently invited to, the journalist decided, well, if there was no classified information, I'm going to release the sensitive stuff that I held back because I thought it might endanger national security. So Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic today published the team update from Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, that he received while he was watching his phone in the Safeway car park, as he's described, his eyes popping out because he couldn't quite believe what he was watching. It sets out over the course of several hours the details of when different formations of the US military will attack Yemen. So it says, for example, that the time now is 11:44 and the weather is favorable, just confirmed, we're a go for the mission launch. Then it says 12:15, F-18s launch, the first strike package, 13:45. F-18 first strike window starts, target terrorist is at his known location. 14:10, that's 10 past 2, more F-18s launch, second strike package. And so it goes on for another 2 or 3 very particular timed interventions that are going to take part in these airstrikes. And this was released before the planes had taken off, bear in mind. And so the contention is that if that information was not classified, as the White House and all the figures now maintain, what information is going to be classified by this administration? Their defense has really backed them into a corner where they are still very strongly saying there was no classified information revealed. And yet, when we've seen the details of it, it strikes most people, especially seasoned observers of the security and intelligence scene, that this information was really almost certainly classified at the time. It was very interesting that Tulsi Gabbard should appear before a committee today, and she did pass the buck to Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, by saying that ultimately it's the defense secretary who holds the authority to classify or declassify. And I just wonder whether we're seeing some fancy footwork here where Pete Hegseth has declassified this information to enable everyone to say that it's not, highly sensitive classified information. It strikes everyone that it is.
Yeah, he started to take a bit of the heat yesterday, actually, in that Senate Intelligence Committee. Pete Hegseth, he's the only one that can do it, and Tulsi Gabbard and John Ratcliffe are more than happy to pass the buck to him. And in fact, we've been hearing today, haven't we, from military spouses and veterans who are questioning the White House's commitment to security after this debacle. Important questions to ask. Stay with us, David. I'm going to bring in Bruce Schneier, who's an internationally renowned security technologist and Harvard Fellow. Good evening, Bruce.
Good evening.
So the big concern here is, for example, attack plans were published on this encrypted signal chat up to 2 hours before the strikes were actually executed. So there are lots of questions flying around about how easy it would have been for someone external to be able to infiltrate this chat, particularly when one of its participants, Steve Witkoff, was in Russia, for example.
Right, so it's not Signal you worry about, it's the phone, right? The app is running on conventional cell phones, and there are lots of companies, governments that have hacks on phones. So they're able to read the traffic as you read it off the screen. So even if Signal is a secure program, the fact that it's being run on insecure devices is the real worry here. And I think there's a decent chance, given how these people are using these devices, that some of the governments did listen in on the same conversation, even without the reporter. The reporter is just how we know about it. If another country knows about it, it's because those people's phones were hacked.
And if it's common knowledge among those communities, among those people, be they nefarious, be they other governments, that actually senior members of the US administration are conducting their wargaming over apps like Signal on mobile phones, then you've got people who are going to be deliberately targeting them. We know that Tulsi Gabbard was abroad.
That's right. And, it's a perfectly reasonable intelligence thing to do, to target other government officials' phones. The hope is they're not doing classified information on them. And this is why the U.S. maintains dedicated military systems for these conversations. We don't allow them to be on consumer-grade devices.
Look, really interesting. Bruce Schneier, thank you to you, internationally renowned security technologist even, and a Harvard Fellow. Great to get that insight from you. David Charter, back to you. Various bits of commentary on this story today. Would you like to hear from Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Well, who wouldn't?
Here she is, the Republican representative, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was facing questions from Martha Kellner of Sky News.
Should the Defence Secretary and the Vice...
Wait, what country are you
from? From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Okay, do you care?
No. You should care about your own borders.
Do you care about American lives being put at risk?
Let me tell you something. Do you care about people from your country? What about all the women that are raped by migrants?
Well, dearie me, she didn't do anything to help US-UK relations. We are a load of freeloaders here in the UK, aren't we, according to some of the members of that Signal chat, David Charter? I mean, hardly surprising from Marjorie Taylor Greene.
No, that's vintage Marjorie, who actually at the Republican convention turned on a Times radio producer, I should say.
Our very own Joe Crawford.
I think she thought she was from the New York Times when she said, "I'm from the Times." That didn't go down too well with Marjorie. She doesn't like either Times by the sound of it. But the more serious point here is that a lot of the pushback today from the senior Republicans, and I'll include Marjorie Taylor Greene in that because she's the chair of a DOGE committee in Congress. That's what she's doing at the moment. But it's been what the Brits would say, playing the man, not the ball. It's been trying to shoot the messenger. That Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, really went after Jeffrey Goldberg today in the White House briefing, calling him an anti-Trump hater. a registered Democrat, which of course is beneath contempt in the White House, who infamously lied about WMD to get us into the Iraq war, which cost billions of dollars. So he basically blamed him for the Iraq war as part of this campaign to rubbish him. And whenever this happens, I'm often reminded when I tell the British audience that we talk about, oh, it's so unfair, they play the man, not the ball. But in American football, the whole point is to play the man. And that's what they do in America. They go after you big time. And that's what's happening right now.
Yeah, look, it does make me wonder how Jeffrey Goldberg's holding up. He would have been well aware that this would have happened, but there'll be concerns about his own personal safety. You know, with various elements of the MAGA massive, I have to say he'll need to be looked after. There we go. It continues to unfold. There are some comments from Marco Rubio apparently today. By the way, I'm just getting these through. Obviously, someone made a mistake. He said someone made a big mistake and added a journalist. Nothing against journalists, but you ain't supposed to be on that thing, so they got on there and this happened. Some comments there that we've had through from NBC News. David Charter, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking us through the latest there on Signalgate, or whatever we're calling it at the moment. David Charter is Assistant US Editor for The Times.